The gavel came down like a thunderclap, echoing through the cavernous courtroom. Silence fell, thick and suffocating, as if the air itself had been stolen from the room. Judge Napolitano's voice rang with finality, announcing the fine against Jasmine Crockett. The words hit like a punch, sharp and unforgiving. A penalty imposed not merely as a matter of law, but with a visible edge of disdain. The room froze as the gavel fell. Every eye locked on Crockett, measuring her reaction, waiting for the slightest falter. Whispers rippled through the gallery, a wave of disbelief and indignation that seemed to vibrate against the walls themselves. Reporters leaned forward, pens poised, cameras clicking, capturing every fraction of a second. The tension was electric, palpable, almost too heavy to breathe. Crockett remained still, her expression calm, unreadable, a quiet defiance that only seemed to inflame the room further. Eyes darted from her to the judge, searching for cracks, for a hint that the courtroom's delicate balance might tip. The murmurs grew louder, a chorus of outrage that spanned the public and the press alike. Social media notifications began flashing in the pockets of the audience. Live streams caught every heartbeat of the moment. People around the country were already reacting. Tweets were being drafted mid-judgment, the world watching a single scene unfold like a slow-motion storm. The injustice felt immediate, raw, undeniable. And yet, amid the tension, Crockett's gaze did not waver. There was a subtle power in her stillness, a silent declaration that the fight was far from over. The camera lingered on her, capturing the moment as if time itself paused, framing her as both the storm's calm center and the rising hero of the narrative. But what happened next left the entire nation in disbelief. Jasmine Crockett wasn't just any attorney or public figure. She had spent years carving her path through the trenches of politics and social advocacy, a relentless voice for justice and equality. From championing voting rights to defending immigrant communities, Crockett's record had always been one of courage under pressure. Her reputation was built on principle, on the belief that those with power must answer to those without it. And now in this courtroom, all of that history was converging into a single pivotal moment. The fine imposed by Judge Napolitano was more than a penalty. It was a symbol. To some, it was an attempt to publicly humble a rising political figure. To others, it was a flashpoint, a lens through which the nation could see the ongoing struggle between integrity and arrogance, fairness and favoritism. Every motion of the judge, every word he pronounced felt amplified, loaded with meaning far beyond the immediate case. This wasn't merely about money or procedure. It was a test of resolve, a battle of principles played out on one of the country's most visible stages. The courtroom itself had become a theater. Cameras lined the edges, capturing every nuance for live television. Across the nation, viewers leaned forward in their living rooms, offices and smartphones, drawn in by the promise of confrontation and the weight of justice in the balance. Social media exploded in real time. Hashtags were trending before the ink on the fine could even dry. Es ist Crockett vs Napolitano, Easton's courtroom showdown, justice or humiliation. Every notification ping reminded the world that this was bigger than the room, bigger than the fine, bigger than any single moment in a career. This was narrative shaping itself in real time. For Crockett, the stakes were monumental. A single response, measured and commanding, had the potential to redefine public perception. One word could transform outrage into inspiration, humiliation into triumph. The nation was watching not just how she would endure the fine, but how she would respond, whether she would crumble under the spotlight or rise into it. And for Napolitano, the arrogance that had marked his career, years of unquestioned authority and public grandstanding, was suddenly exposed to scrutiny on a level he could not control. Every heartbeat in that room echoed with anticipation. Allies and critics alike waited, poised to dissect every glance, every syllable. The tension was cinematic, palpable, almost impossible to ignore. One response would change how the world saw her, and him. It was a test not merely of legal acumen, but of character, poise, and the courage to confront power without flinching. As the courtroom cameras continued to roll and social media feeds lit up, the narrative began to shape itself. The hero poised against arrogance, principle standing against privilege. And while the audience across the country held its breath, the stage was set for the next act. the backstory of the man who would stand opposite her, the antagonist whose hubris was about to collide with unshakable resolve. The story was only beginning, and the world was about to watch the clash that would define them both. Judge Napolitano's name carried weight long before he entered the courtroom that day. A career spanning decades, he had built a reputation as a sharp legal mind, an authoritative commentator on high-profile cases, and a fixture in the media as a pundit, whose words were quoted and replayed endlessly. To some he was brilliant, an icon of legal intellect. To others, he was a figure of hubris, a man whose ego had grown unchecked alongside his notoriety. Over time, his public persona had come to blend intellect with arrogance, a combination that made him both revered and feared. From the beginning, Napolitano had cultivated an image of superiority. Colleagues and observers often noted his self-assured demeanor, his confidence bordering on imperiousness. In hearings, he would lean back smirking, as if the courtroom were not a place of justice but his personal stage. Each ruling was delivered with a sense of theatricality, a subtle flourish that reminded everyone watching who wielded the power. Even in moments where humility might have been appropriate, Napolitano's presence demanded attention, projecting authority in a way that often intimidated or silenced those around him. His track record was peppered with moments that revealed both brilliance and controversy. In prior cases, he had issued rulings that sparked public debate, decisions that critics claimed favored privilege or overlooked nuanced truths. There were times when his condescension was nearly palpable. Attorneys who dared to challenge him would find themselves interrupted, lectured, or subtly undermined. Witnesses were sometimes treated with an air of impatience, as if their words carried less weight than the sheer authority of the bench. The courtroom, under his gaze, often became less a space for dialogue and more a theater of performance, where Napolitano's judgment was both final and flamboyantly displayed. Yet it wasn't just the courtroom where his arrogance manifested. Public appearances, media panels, and interviews further reinforced the image of a man confident to the point of dismissiveness. He had a way of framing debates that placed himself in the spotlight, positioning dissenting voices as uninformed or ill-prepared. Over time, this cultivated a perception that he was untouchable, a figure whose intellect shielded him from accountability, whose confidence bordered on invincibility. For many, this persona was as intimidating as it was impressive. Even on the day Crockett faced him, that aura of superiority was unmistakable. He carried himself with a measured air of theatricality, leaning back in his chair, scanning the room as if weighing not just the case, but the spectacle it created. Every gesture was calculated, every word delivered with the precision of someone accustomed to being the center of attention. The courtroom seemed to bend around him, the walls echoing with the weight of his presence. To any observer, Napolitano seemed impervious, untouchable, a man for whom consequence was an abstract concept rather than a reality. But arrogance has a way of underestimating the quiet force that meets it. Across the courtroom, Jasmine Crockett prepared herself, not with theatrics, not with grand gestures, but with a calm focus that would soon upend expectations. The contrast was clear. Where Napolitano radiated dominance and entitlement, Crockett embodied measured resolve and integrity. And though the judge believed the stage belonged solely to him, the narrative was about to shift. The quiet heroism of Crockett, poised to meet and expose the very hubris that Napolitano had long taken for granted. The audience, both in the room and across the country, would soon witness how the seemingly untouchable could be held accountable, not by theatrics, but by truth, dignity, and unwavering composure. And in that moment, the stage was set for a confrontation that would not only define the courtroom but echo far beyond its walls. Jasmine Crockett's journey to this courtroom was not one paved with privilege or ease. Born into a world where opportunities were hard-won and justice often felt distant, she had learned early that the fight for fairness demanded both courage and perseverance. From her formative years, Crockett displayed a sharp intellect and a tenacity that would define her life. Her path through law school was marked not only by academic excellence, but by a growing awareness of the systemic inequities that many communities faced, inequities she vowed to challenge. Her early career was a testament to tireless dedication. Crockett worked long hours advocating for marginalized groups, navigating bureaucracies that often seemed designed to impede rather than assist. She represented clients whose voices had been dismissed, whose grievances had been minimized by a system blind to their struggles. In each case, she brought a combination of meticulous preparation, strategic thinking, and an unyielding commitment to principle. Over time, word of her skill and integrity spread, and she rose through the ranks, recognized not for self-promotion, but for the results she delivered and the lives she impacted. What made Crockett formidable was not merely her intellect, but the poise with which she carried it. She had a rare ability to remain composed under pressure, to listen before speaking, to let facts and reason speak louder than emotion. In interviews, public appearances, and courtroom proceedings, she exuded confidence that never veered into arrogance. Her reputation was one of calm authority, someone who could command attention not through volume or spectacle, but through clarity, conviction, and quiet strength. Beyond her professional achievements, Crockett's personal life reflected a deep empathy and commitment to community. She spent countless hours volunteering, mentoring young people from immigrant and underrepresented backgrounds, and advocating for social programs that addressed systemic inequities. Friends and colleagues often remarked on her willingness to sacrifice her own time and energy for the betterment of others, a trait that only deepened her credibility and moral authority. These experiences gave her a unique perspective, grounding her in the realities of those she represented, and reinforcing the sense that justice was not an abstract concept, but a tangible responsibility. Her rise to prominence was never meteoric or accidental. It was earned through resilience in the face of obstacles, through a refusal to compromise on principle, and through a strategic mind that could navigate complex political and legal landscapes. Crockett learned early that influence was wielded most effectively when combined with integrity, and she carried that lesson into every stage of her career. Whether drafting legislation, negotiating settlements, or standing in court, she demonstrated an ability to anticipate opposition, craft precise arguments, and respond with a measured, impactful presence. By the time she entered Napolitano's courtroom, Crockett had already honed the qualities that would define her response: patience under scrutiny, the ability to read a room, and the skill to deliver maximum impact with minimal flourish. She understood that true strength often lay in restraint, that the most powerful moments were those where composure met conviction. And though the gavel had just come down against her, she exuded no panic or desperation, only the calm focus of someone who had faced far greater challenges and emerged victorious. The courtroom had become more than a stage. It was a crucible where principle and pride would collide. Crockett's preparation was meticulous, invisible to most yet undeniable in its effect. Every glance, every posture, every pause had been calculated to maintain control, to project authority, and to ensure that when the moment came to respond, her words would resonate far beyond the walls of the room. The contrast with Napolitano was already clear. Where he carried himself with theatrical superiority, she radiated quiet confidence. Where he relied on intimidation and showmanship, she relied on strategy and integrity. And as the cameras captured every second, as whispers and gasps spread through the gallery, the stage was set for the confrontation that would define not only this courtroom battle, but the narrative that the nation would carry forward. The audience, both present and watching across the country, sensed the tension in the air, the unspoken understanding that this was no ordinary case. This was a clash of values, of intellect, and of character. And as Crockett prepared to speak, the room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the precise moment when calm resolve would meet unchecked arrogance, setting the stage for a response that would leave an indelible mark on everyone watching. The courtroom vibrated with intensity, each gavel struck a pulse echoing the mounting tension. Napolitano's voice cut sharply through the room, punctuating his rulings with a precision designed to unsettle. "You will comply immediately," he declared, his words carrying both authority and a subtle scorn. Every interruption, every pointed glance reinforced the weight of his presence, as though the room itself existed to magnify his power. Lawyers shifted uneasily, spectators leaned forward, and cameras zoomed in, capturing every fraction of a second for the nation watching live. Napolitano's arrogance had begun to swell visibly. He gestured broadly, leaned back with a smirk, and delivered pointed questions that seemed less about legal clarity and more about asserting dominance. His tone suggested he expected submission, hesitation, fear. The air seemed heavy with anticipation, every eye tracing Crockett's reaction, waiting for a crack, a misstep. Some whispered among themselves, noting the subtle rise of tension, the sense that a spectacle was unfolding and that one small word could ignite a firestorm. But Crockett remained unshaken. Her posture was straight, her gaze unwavering. Silence framed her like a shield, an invisible aura of control. The courtroom seemed to pause around her composure, the murmurs of doubt fading as she absorbed each challenge with the calm precision of someone who had faced far greater pressures. He expected fear or hesitation. What he didn't expect was her silence. Then the calmest, sharpest response he had ever heard. Every syllable was deliberate, measured, resonant with intellect and authority. She turned the energy that sought to intimidate her into a quiet, commanding presence that held the room in rapt attention. The drama escalated with each exchange. Napolitano attempted to trip her with pointed legal references, sharp interruptions, and a tone dripping with superiority. Crockett countered without fluster, answering clearly, exposing inconsistencies and framing her rebuttals in a way that made him appear increasingly unsettled. The contrast could not have been starker. His theatrics met her calm, his bluster met her precision. The courtroom became a stage for a high-stakes duel, not of fists but of intellect, strategy, and moral authority. Every movement and every word sent ripples beyond the room. Cameras caught every flicker of emotion, every sharpened glance, every deliberate pause. Social media feeds erupted in real time. Clips circulated instantly. A subtle smirk, a pointed pause, a carefully enunciated phrase. Hashtags began trending mid-hearing. A Crockett calm, Napolitano exposed, his courtroom showdown. Viewers across the country were drawn into the tension, feeling the weight of the confrontation as if they were in the gallery themselves. Whispered commentary in the courtroom blended with the digital chorus of reaction online, creating a multi-layered wave of attention and scrutiny. The climax of this section was building like a storm on the horizon. The audience sensed that the moment of reckoning was imminent. Napolitano's confidence, once unshakable, was showing the first cracks. Crockett's poised demeanor suggested that a pivotal response was not only coming, but that it would land with precision, impact, and consequence. The courtroom, the cameras, and the nation itself were collectively bracing for what was next, the moment when composed brilliance would meet unchecked arrogance, setting the stage for the mic drop that would leave an indelible mark on all who watched. Crockett rose slowly, deliberately, each movement measured as if to remind the courtroom that she was not merely responding, she was commanding the moment. The air shifted the instant she began speaking, a subtle tension folding around her words, amplifying their weight. Every eye turned toward her, the gavel's echo now a distant murmur compared to the gravity she carried. She did not raise her voice. She did not flinch. Instead, she let the calm certainty of her presence speak before a single word left her lips. "He may impose fines," she began, her tone steady, unyielding. "But no amount of intimidation can diminish the truth of justice. No authority can silence integrity, and no display of arrogance can rewrite the principles that guide this courtroom or this nation." Each phrase landed like deliberate strikes, precise, controlled, yet brimming with moral clarity. The pause between sentences allowed the room to absorb her meaning. Each silence spoke louder than any shout, compelling attention, commanding respect. Napolitano's smirk faltered. The arrogance that had defined him seemed to slip, imperceptibly at first, then undeniably. He leaned forward slightly, attempting to reclaim control, yet the momentum had already shifted. The audience felt it, an almost tangible pivot in the energy of the room. Where once his presence had dominated, Crockett now radiated authority. Calm authority layered with intellect, strategy, and the undeniable moral high ground. Every gesture she made was calculated yet natural. A measured hand movement, a deliberate glance across the room, a quiet nod that reinforced her point. The slow-motion nature of the scene made each reaction more pronounced. Attorneys who had been quietly observing leaned forward, whispers of admiration spreading like wildfire. The gallery held its collective breath, sensing the transformation of the encounter from confrontation to revelation. Social media feeds erupted mid-scene. Viewers captured her composure, shared clips of her words, and debated the spectacle in real time. Hashtags like Joyce Crockett wins and Napolitano shaken began trending within minutes, the digital world amplifying the drama as if echoing the tension in the courtroom itself. Crockett's words were precise, incisive, each sentence crafted to illuminate inconsistencies and highlight principles. "We are not here to perform theatrics," she continued, her voice steady and unwavering. "We are here to uphold the law, to honor the people who rely on fairness, and to ensure that justice is not overshadowed by ego. Authority without accountability is meaningless, and arrogance without principle is fragile." The courtroom absorbed the weight of her statement. Napolitano's gestures grew slightly more tense, the smirk now replaced by subtle signs of disquiet. He attempted to interrupt, but Crockett anticipated it, pausing with perfect timing, letting the silence speak volumes. The contrast was undeniable. Where he had relied on spectacle, she relied on substance. Where he had wielded intimidation, she wielded reason. The hero's dignity now towered above the crumbling authority of the villain. Each word she spoke drew a clear line between principled courage and unearned hubris. The audience, both present and virtual, felt the visceral impact of this clash, morally, emotionally, and intellectually. Every camera angle, every reaction shot captured the subtle unraveling of power before the steadfast strength of conviction. Crockett didn't just respond. She dismantled the performance Napolitano had so carefully constructed. Her final points were delivered with a resonance that felt almost cinematic in its perfection. This courtroom, and by extension our nation, thrives not on the fear of its participants, but on the integrity of those who uphold it. We answer not to arrogance, but to truth. The truth today is that respect is earned, not assumed. Napolitano's attempt to regain control faltered completely. He opened his mouth, hesitated, and then paused, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The audience reacted in waves. Gasps, murmurs, and spontaneous applause rippled through the gallery. Cameras captured the subtle tremor in his composure, the tiny shifts in posture that revealed uncertainty where once there had been only confidence. Meanwhile, social media exploded further. Posts, comments, and memes circulated with lightning speed, every clip and quote reinforcing the narrative of the courtroom reversal. Jasmine Crockett shows courtroom victory. Napolitano humiliated became a digital echo of the power shift unfolding in real time. Even the legal analysts on live TV paused, eyes widening as they dissected the exchange. "She didn't just answer. She redefined the room," one commentator remarked. Another added, "This is a masterclass in composure, strategy, and moral authority." He underestimated her, and now everyone is seeing why she commands respect. Crockett's final moments in that courtroom were a quiet crescendo. She allowed the silence to stretch, letting the room and the world absorb the full weight of her response. No raised voice, no dramatics, just a controlled, brilliant dismantling of arrogance, with the precision of intellect and the power of principle. In that moment, she was both hero and exemplar, a figure of resilience, moral clarity, and strategic brilliance. And as the gavel threatened to fall again, as cameras captured every lingering reaction, and as social media continued its relentless amplification, the realization was clear. Napolitano's authority had been challenged and found wanting. Crockett's poise, her calm strength, her unwavering commitment to justice, had turned what seemed like a defeat into an unmistakable victory, and the world would not stop talking about what she just did. The moment Crockett's response landed, the courtroom seemed suspended in a collective gasp. Cameras panned over stunned faces, capturing disbelief, admiration, and the subtle tremor of authority cracking. Outside the courtroom, the world erupted. Social media platforms lit up like a city skyline at night, notifications multiplying by the second. Clips of her measured, razor-sharp response were shared and reshared, each play adding to the viral momentum. Memes began circulating almost instantly. Side-by-side images of Napolitano's faltering smirk and Crockett's composed poise became shorthand for the triumph of dignity over arrogance. Hashtags surged into trending lists. The Crockett victory, the mic drop moment, justice served. Every tweet, every post carried with it a mix of awe and exhilaration, a celebration of a moment where intellect and principle had visibly prevailed. Viewers expressed relief and validation, particularly those who had long felt marginalized or silenced by systems stacked against them. For many, Crockett's poise wasn't just inspiring, it was deeply personal, a confirmation that resilience and integrity could confront and overcome bluster and intimidation. The commentary didn't stop at social media. Political figures weighed in, some lauding her composure and steadfastness. Pundits dissected the exchange on cable news, replaying key moments frame by frame, analyzing tone, strategy, and rhetorical mastery. Even celebrities, long accustomed to observing public drama, joined the chorus, praising Crockett's brilliance and lamenting the spectacle of Napolitano's unraveling. Each analysis amplified the narrative. This was not merely a courtroom exchange, it was a cultural event, a touchstone moment that rippled across audiences far beyond the legal community. Public opinion shifted almost instantaneously. Conversations erupted in households, offices, and online forums alike. Where some had previously seen Napolitano as untouchable, doubt now shadowed his reputation. Friends debated, strangers shared clips, and communities discussed the significance of the encounter. The courtroom had become a microcosm of societal tensions: authority versus accountability, arrogance versus integrity, performance versus principle. And at the center of it all was Crockett, standing as a beacon of measured strength, earning admiration not through spectacle, but through composure and insight. Legal circles, too, felt the tremors. Attorneys, judges, and law students debated her strategy, her rhetorical timing, and the way she leveraged her calm under pressure. Some predicted that the exchange would be cited in lectures and seminars for years to come as an example of courtroom mastery, a case study in turning a punitive moment into a showcase of skill and moral authority. Even Napolitano's colleagues and peers could not ignore the ramifications. His authority, carefully cultivated over decades, had been publicly challenged in a way that left his composure visibly fractured. And yet, the tension carried a tantalizing edge. Could he recover from this humiliation? Social media threads buzzed with speculation. Political commentators, viewers, and insiders alike asked the same question repeatedly. Can he reclaim his authority after this? The curiosity and anticipation kept the story alive long after the courtroom emptied. A reminder that moments of brilliance can linger, their resonance shaping public perception in ways that outlast the immediate scene. Amid the viral clips, commentary, and debates, one truth crystallized: Crockett's response had shifted the narrative. She had not only defended herself against an unjust fine, but she had demonstrated the power of calm, principled action in the face of arrogance. The ripples extended beyond reputations. They sparked conversations about the very values underpinning authority and public service, reminding the nation that character matters as much as, if not more than, position. The world watched, reacted, and shared. The courtroom drama had become a collective experience, a cultural moment in which audiences felt seen, validated, and inspired. And while Napolitano's confidence had been shaken, the focus turned toward reflection, the broader implications of integrity, courage, and the quiet force of moral clarity. The stage was now ready for the final reckoning, the values-driven reflection that would leave viewers not just informed, but uplifted and fully aware of the stakes of standing firm in the face of arrogance. As the echoes of the courtroom drama faded, what remained was not the gavel, the fine, or the fractured composure of Judge Napolitano. What lingered was the clarity of principle, embodied in Jasmine Crockett's unshakable poise. In that moment, she reframed the confrontation entirely, not as a personal victory, but as a universal lesson. Authority and theatrics may demand attention, she showed, but dignity, courage, and integrity command respect. It was a truth both timeless and urgent, that character cannot be diminished by arrogance, and that strength is measured not by dominance, but by the steadfastness to uphold justice when it matters most. Crockett's response became a masterclass in moral authority. She had faced a figure whose reputation had long intimidated and overshadowed others, yet she refused to bend. Her composure illuminated a path for anyone feeling pressured by power, reminding audiences that courage is not loud, nor is it performative. It is deliberate, principled, and unwavering. In this, Her actions transcended the courtroom. They spoke to anyone who has ever faced unfairness, condescension, or systemic bias. Standing firm, even when the odds seem insurmountable, is itself an act of quiet heroism. The audience, both live and virtual, felt the emotional resonance immediately. Social media posts shifted from astonishment to admiration, emphasizing lessons in resilience and integrity. Citizens across the country, particularly those from marginalized and immigrant communities, saw a reflection of their own struggles in Crockett's calm defiance. Her example affirmed that standing for justice, even against formidable opposition, was not only possible, but transformative. Every retweet, every comment, every shared clip carried this affirmation, spreading the lesson far beyond the walls of the courtroom. Crockett's victory was not a fleeting spectacle. It was a moral reckoning. She demonstrated that intimidation could be met with intellect, that performance could be countered with principle, and that the authority of a title or position does not outweigh the power of ethical courage. This lesson resonated with anyone who has felt powerless, offering a roadmap for facing challenges with dignity and purpose. By refusing to engage in theatrics herself, Crockett elevated the debate from a personal clash to a testament of universal values. The emotional crescendo of this moment was undeniable. Viewers were left inspired, not simply by the spectacle of her rebuttal, but by the enduring truth it conveyed, that justice, empathy, and moral courage are forces stronger than arrogance, fear, or intimidation. Audiences felt validated, empowered, and hopeful. For many, Crockett's composure was a model to emulate, a reminder that standing firm in the face of injustice carries a ripple effect far beyond immediate victories. And as the nation absorbed the implications, the story naturally began to close, guiding the audience toward reflection and action. The confrontation had ended, but the message had not. Dignity and principle would outlast theatrics and ego. The narrative left viewers with a choice: to carry forward the lesson, to engage with the values Crockett embodied, and to recognize the power inherent in integrity and courage. The stage was now set for the final act, the outro, a call to action that would tie the courtroom drama to real-world inspiration. Audiences were ready to take the energy, the lessons, and the emotional resonance with them, carrying the moral clarity of the moment into their own lives. The victory was not hers alone. It belonged to everyone willing to stand firm, to speak truth with calm authority, and to let dignity lead the way. The courtroom showdown between Jasmine Crockett and Judge Napolitano was more than a moment of drama. It was a lesson in courage, composure, and the enduring power of dignity. From the gavel's first strike to Crockett's decisive, measured response, viewers witnessed a confrontation that transcended the walls of the courtroom. What seemed like a personal clash became a national spectacle, a story of principle prevailing over arrogance, of integrity outshining intimidation. Crockett reminded the world that true power does not come from bluster or theatrics. It comes from preparation, conviction, and the courage to stand firm in the face of injustice. Her calm brilliance under pressure left a mark on everyone watching, sending a message that resonates far beyond legal battles. Dignity is stronger than ego, and principled courage can inspire change in ways that spectacle never can. Now, it's your turn to be part of the conversation. Share this story with your friends, family, and community. Let them witness the power of standing tall when confronted with arrogance and injustice. Comment below with your thoughts, your experiences, and the moments where courage made a difference in your life. Engage, discuss, and celebrate the triumph of integrity over intimidation. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel for more stories that uncover the truth. Celebrate resilience and highlight moments where heroes stand firm in the spotlight. Together, we can explore, share, and amplify the stories that matter. Stories that inspire, empower, and remind us all that courage, dignity, and integrity will always prevail. The courtroom may have emptied, but the lesson lives on. Stand tall, speak truth, and remember, the world notices those who act with principle,